Hello everybody from the YouTube world. We are doing a live stream and I'm going to be talking about my first ever world first rank 1 softcore build. I re-rolled in the Badger private league and I've been having a lot of fun with an Essence Drain Raider, which was initially inspired by Cestarix, who played it 2-100 on Hardcore Trade. And yeah, I've modified it to softcore it up and it's pretty interesting. Hopefully Onyu is going to be playing some gameplay in the background for you guys to see. And I'll be explaining some of the concepts. This is going to be a build diary, so I'm not going to go into too many details when it comes to the gearing process, but I will explain the foundations of the build. And if I continue to play it, even though I've really been doing red maps all along, even from like level 70, I was running tier 14s and it was totally fine. But if we keep pushing it, and I probably will, we might end up doing a build diary if it actually does end up working in the very end bossing type of gameplay. So this is an Essence Drain Raider as mentioned previously, but it uses some quirky things. One of those super quirky things is a permanent Fortify and a permanent low life RF. Why are you doing this to me? It's a permanent low life RF setup. So how do we sustain RF? The way you do this is by using a life flask, and Captain Lance released a very nice video, and we're gonna have that video somewhere in the description for you guys. If you type in YouTube Captain Lance RF sustain thing, he actually explains this concept really nicely. I was familiar with it previously, but you can see in the description that he explains it very well for different thresholds of potions and whatnot. And the general TLDR, if you are not familiar with the concept whatsoever, is that we use low life modifiers on something like your Pantheon Rislatha to essentially stagnate our HP below the 50% threshold, which again allows us to very nicely run Righteous Fire at a pretty steady amount of HP, a really steady amount of HP, which then Righteous Fire by itself, if you were to be asking, what does it even give us? Righteous Fire gives me currently 36% more spell damage, which obviously affects our Essence Drain, super useful. Gives us Pain Attunement, which is another 30% more spell damage. And more importantly, the really cool concept about this is that we use an amulet with Hardened Scars. What Hardened Scars does is it gives us Fortify whenever our life flask is active. And our life flasks are always active because we can click them as many times as we want in a map, and it's going to queue up a million of them, and that way it's going to be there. And also with the Rislatha, it automatically regenerates on its own whenever we're not clicking the life flask, so that's going to give us those well needed charges just in case if you were to maybe die during a boss encounter or something, and you wouldn't have something like that. Although again, I have yet to test how this is going to be working out for bosses. I have killed some Conquerors and it was totally no problem. But yeah, no promises on that front when it comes to the bossing aspects of it. But those are the general benefits. Make sure to pay attention to your regeneration. Make sure to watch the video from Captain Lance, as it is super informative, and again, it will give you those thresholds. Outside of that, everything else is a pretty standard Essence Drain build. The only unusual fact is that it's a Raider, and you might be asking why. Why is it a Raider, Raiz? Well, Avatar of the Chase is OP, Rapid Assault is OP, Quartz Infusion is OP, and Avatar of the Veil is OP. No surprises there. You don't really need damage from your Ascendancy on Essence Drain ever. That's why people are playing it with a Trickster, but we do get a ton of damage from the skill tree. And yeah, you never really get hit. The reason also why this setup in general is so nicely symbiotic, I guess is a good word to describe it, with Essence Drain is that Essence Drain gives you regeneration, right? So the more damage you deal with Essence Drain, you can read on the skill itself, it says regenerate 0.50% of debuff damage as life. So we cannot regenerate past 50%, but any amount of health that we lose or that gets applied to Petrified Blood will be regenerated with Essence Drain. So as long as we're Essence Draining, the more damage we deal, the more that's going to be working with the rest of our setup, which is very nice because you can't really accomplish this otherwise. I don't even use an instant life flask. You could be leeching that HP back because obviously with petrified blood you do have overleech, but it's not easily accomplishable on the majority of like these sort of setups. Yep. And then I guess to track back to the Raider, to be serious, cast speed is just really, really good for something like Essence Drain. I thought that I'm going to be using Fortify, but we ended up with this setup, so we don't really need the attack speed. But just moving quickly through maps is super good. Phasing is insane for any damage over time build. Obviously, having the dodge and the dodge from the acrobatics is super useful. And then Avatar of the Veil helps us out with pretty much granting us close to ailment avoidance or full ailment immunity with thick skin. So with just this, you have 70%. You can put the remaining 30% either on a dodge jewel on your cluster, or you could put it on your gear, as you now can craft, I think 15%. So you would need 2 gear pieces to craft that. Although I think you can only do that on boots and a shield. And we don't use a shield, so yeah. But you could use a shield and then you could take arcane swiftness and then you're good. You actually only need 20%. No, you need 30%. Yeah, because we don't pick up this. So you could just craft it on the boots, use a shield, arcane swiftness. There's a lot of different options, however you want to approach this. You could use a numbing elixir, medium cluster jewel, because our enduring mana flask is always active. I haven't really figured this out yet, but I do have an enduring mana flask, and this way you could pretty much also gain ailment avoidance. And then yeah, getting hit less is exactly what Raider does best. Skill tree, pretty generic. You're gonna have some mana problems probably initially, but that's gonna go away with clarity levels. You travel over to acrobatics, you pick up phase acrobatics, you pick up method of madness. If you want to level this build, I don't really recommend playing it until maps. You can obviously use Toxic Rain. The skill tree is somewhat the same. You might pick up Hunter's Gambit for something like that. It's just super effective. One of the best ways, especially if you're twinking your gear, the best way to level really Imperial right now is probably Toxic Rain altogether. Not sure about the pathing here, but it's working. Not sure about arcane expenses, but it's working. We're gonna have nice medium jewels over here, so even more damage. Again, the more damage, the more we have the regeneration, the more we can face tank stuff. Because despite the amount of HP that we have, we are pretty tanky with the permanent fortify, with the decent sustain. And then also petrified blood itself, people tend to think that this gem somehow just cuts your HP in half and that's it. But if you pay attention to it, it does say that when taking damage from hits, 40% of life loss below half life is prevented. Then 84% of that life loss prevented this way is lost over 4 seconds. So again, as long as you've got the regeneration, that prevention is there, and this essentially increases your total HP. So it's not like we're particularly squishy. I've really only died once so far on this character when mapping, and I have been really running way too high maps. I've been running red maps all the way since like level 75, and it's been working out really well. A couple questions I guess that people might have for the build is, why are you not running Wind Dancer? And this is the one really big downside of this build, is because Wind Dancer is really good, especially on the Raider. 20% less damage taken if you haven't been hit recently, which Raider never gets hit, and when you do get hit, this will pretty much always be active. So the reason why this is a problem is because it's 20% less damage taken globally, which affects our Righteous Fire, which then unfortunately breaks the synergy and the life regeneration for our life flask, essentially meaning that unless we're getting hit, we are taking less damage from Righteous Fire, which means that our HP starts regenerating, which means that we are above 50% HP, and that is no good if you want to be using Pain Attunement. And it also really does get quite annoying because your HP starts ping-ponging, and sometimes you regenerate fully and you lose that regeneration effect. Again, it might be for bosses, it might be valuable to pick this up. You might want to switch it around. It's totally up to you. I haven't experimented with it a whole lot, but I'm just a lazy guy. So far for mapping, I found it to be not so useful, but also not really that big of a deal since, yeah, again, I haven't really been dying. I guess that's really it as far as the build diary goes. I don't know. Check out the build. I guess it's kind of working. Hopefully we're going to be able to see how it keeps going. Oh, another big con. Chat is helping me out. A huge con, as well as the light radius. It's a big problem. Maybe Anya can show you guys some of the footage from the maps. But any map that's like inherently dark or like indoor maps in general, yeah, you can't see shit because we are constantly low life. Arcane Vision doesn't do anything for us as you would run on like a low life build or something like that. Doesn't do anything. So you might want to be crafting light radius on your gear. You might want to use a Lori's lantern. You might want to get life radius. It's not super duper bad, not to the point of unplayability, because if you run over mobs, your RF is going to take their HP, which will activate the health bar, and with Essence Drain you pretty much like only need to hit one guy and you need to kill multiple screens of mobs. But yeah, it would be nicer to see, you know. I would prefer to see personally in those situations. And I guess when it comes to gear a little bit, I can talk about that as well. We are dual wielding. I am looking for, again, this is the Badger BPL League, so it's a fairly fresh economy, so to say. So I don't have anything particularly crazy. You can see that my wands are just +1 and then chaos damage, and then we've got +1, a little bit of chaos damage over time and some spell damage. You can obviously improve these. You can even get like +2 wands or something, or better chaos damage over time, or even you know, the tier 1 chaos damage over time, as those have been swapped around. I think you can even get a hunter wand and that has increased chaos damage over time, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't stack with spell damage, so you wouldn't have to go that far. We can definitely improve our gear there. For your gloves, I highly recommend the Hands of the High Templar, I think it's called, with good modifiers, and using Essence Drain in that. So something with like increased duration and maybe, or sorry, duration, increased gem duration levels or something like that, whatever it's called. And then same thing for like projectile gems plus projectile gem levels. Oh, that's the one. That would be super useful. And then you just put your Essence Drain in there, and then you move your Blight into your chest piece for the 6th link. We have enough mana, so it shouldn't be a problem to use it otherwise. Again, I have a very limited setup, so we're using a faster casting Blight, which isn't great because I have infused channeling, which doesn't affect our Vol Blight, and I'm using faster casting, which also doesn't affect our Vol Blight since it's always the same cast speed. So my single target is still pretty good, but it could get a lot better if you fix up that. Generic rings, again, you could be using Lori's Lantern. I'm just using rings with life and res. Obviously, mana can be useful too. Statistics are useful. I do have this low light ring, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to be equipping that at some point. As for your belt, rare belt works. You know, you can essence craft a belt. You can use a hunter belt. More HP is always good. But do keep in mind that every time you upgrade your HP, you are running the potential of having to upgrade your life flask as well. I'm only up to a saturated divine life flask, but I have the other ones prepared just in case, you know, the cautious divine life flask, and maybe we're even going to be using an eternal eventually. Boots, honestly, probably it's Ziri's boots or the phase boots. I can't quite remember the name of them. But the really good phase boots, I'm sure chat's going to help me out in just a minute with that. And as for your helmet, get a damaging enchant. I do have a helmet with contagion area of effect, but it's not really particularly. 3-step assault, there you go, for the boots. I prefer the 3-step assault over at Ziri, but that's totally up to you. So yeah, super generic. Nothing special for the chest piece either. You could get a Redeemer chest piece. I know that Systerics did that, a Redeemer chest piece with blind mobs around you that would make you even more juicy in the tankiness department, but I think it already works plenty well. It would be a lot better with a Ziri step because, yeah, at that point only really spell damage can do anything to you at all. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the diary. I'll keep improving the gear, keep improving the concept, the character, and hopefully at the end of the day I'm gonna have a juicy build guide for you guys for my first ever rank 1, I'm not sure at what yet, Rank 1 BPL mascot. ED low life raider. Which still sounds weird every time I say it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. See you guys in the next one. Bye.